I'm Larry Botz, and I was born in Taylor, Michigan, and went through schools in Taylor, and went to Wayne State University, University of Michigan, and ended up going into the hotel business. And first of all, worked for Holiday Inns, and then ended up going through with Hilton Hotels, Ramada Inns, Sheraton's, and then joined GE Springer Corporation, which is a Cleveland-based hotel company in Beechwood, Ohio. And ended up as Vice President of Operations with GE Springer. Went to Chicago, had 4 hotels in Chicago. I had the Hilton at the airport, I had the Holiday Inn at the airport, the Sheraton at the airport. And then we decided we wanted to look for something that would be a little bit more concrete of the future. So we were traveling around the country looking for a place to buy and open a restaurant. We never even settled on Saugatuck. My sister was living here at that point, and we were visiting all the time, but it didn't appear that there was anything for sale at that point. So we were traveling basically all over Michigan.
We being?
My wife and I, Jenny and I, were traveling around Michigan. We looked at Petoskey, Charlevoix, we looked at Traverse City. We're a little concerned about the short season farther north, and we came back to Saugatuck and were originally interested in purchasing Terra from the Wilsons. We looked at the Gourmet Shop, Terra, we looked at the Left Bank at that point, and really couldn't put anything together. We wanted Terra in the worst way, but we felt the only way that that was going to work financially is to be able to run and transport people from downtown Saugatuck to the Terra so they wouldn't give up their parking place. We wanted to do horse and carriage and ran into all kinds of resistance from the city of Douglas, more so than from the city of Saugatuck. They were going to allow us to do it, but Douglas wouldn't let us transport horse and carriages unless we diapered them, and we had all kinds of licensing, and it just got to the point where it would not have been feasible. And we wanted to restore Terra, and they did not want us to restore it. They wanted us to upgrade it and modernize it, and at that point they just couldn't comprehend what a restoration was. So after almost a year, we finally gave up on Terra, and we decided we were just going to go and look elsewhere again. So we took a trip up to Traverse City in Petoskey and went into a real estate office, and talking to the real estate agent of what commercial properties were available, we noticed a picture of pumpernickels in a photograph above the real estate. He says, "Yeah, I own that." So we said, "Well, I'm kind of interested." And he said, "Well, we're still on the market." He says, "I'm not going to sell it because we're not we want to just take it off the market and redevelop it." I said, "Okay, fine. If you ever change your mind, let us know." We no sooner got back to Des Plaines, where we were living at that point, and got a phone call from him. He says, "All right, we're willing to sell it to you." So he had a Kilwins operation in here and a Pumpernickels at that time. The building was condemned, the second floor was condemned, and we finally struck up an agreement and developed the property from there. And that's how we got here in 1988.
Ah, so you said there was a Pumpernickels here.
We decided to keep the name. We felt that instead of putting a new name, it already had somewhat of a following. It was a little delicatessen. It had no cooking facilities. The second floor, again, was condemned by the fire that was here in '79. And so everything was pre-made. They did cinnamon rolls, and they did a couple other things, but most of the preparation was done at the Kilwins across the street. They brought things over. That went bankrupt, and we decided, it's a lot easier to just develop on it because we were new. There was no seating in the building, so we put 3 seats in, and just took our time trying to restructure what was already working for a busy season. Because again, in the summer, it doesn't take a lot of talent to do business in the summer. There was just enough people, so we could take our time trying to find out what our niche was going to be in the community. So that went for the first couple of years. When the building burnt down next door, there was actually another building, and it was a sand lot. It was a dirt lot there. So we put picnic tables, and we were barbecuing brats and hot dogs, and we felt at that point that we needed to generate more revenue, and selling a hot dog for $1.50 at that time, or a brat wasn't going to be able to pay the debt. So we added. We closed it. We didn't close it. We put a deck out there. And I remember the first year we put the deck out there, I think it was maybe 1990. It was the worst summer that Saugatuck had ever experienced. All it did was rain. So we didn't have any use of the deck. So we felt then if we were going to do any kind of business consistently, we're going to have to close that deck in. So we met our neighbor, Dick Rudick, at that point, who was an architect here in town. And he was a regular customer, came in here all the time. And his wife at that time was Sylvia Rudick, who was a real estate agent at the time. And he said, you know, I've never worked on a Victorian type of feeling or Greek revival or anything else. He said, I'm strictly, modern. And he says, but I'll take a stab at it. So Dick worked on the plans, and to this day, we followed the plans that Dick did originally for us by closing in the deck, doing the upstairs. We've got 4 or 5 other phases that we would like to do. We've got a jet out on the front of the building that's there for an elevator. If we were going to put an elevator in, it's all designed and ready to go. That's why these French doors are here, because we were going to be able to connect all of these and put a, Dick had designed a nice little balcony around the entire outside of the building so you could sit outside. So that was probably our first 3 or 4 years. Then we closed in the upstairs, the downstairs, added a kitchen, started doing breakfast, and to this day we've got 310 seats. So from 3 indoor seats to 310 seats. So it's kind of a short synopsis of what we've done here, but we've done it in stages over the years.
That's a great overview.
Okay.
Let me go back and put some things under the microscope, though.
Okay.
I'm curious about how you made the transition from large corporate management kinds of positions that you had to doing this. What led you and Jenny to decide?
I'd like to do that off the record if we can.
Oh,
and
sure.
then you'll understand the reasoning for
Okay.
that. Our daughter was killed in 1988.
Oh.
And that was kind of the catalyst of where we decided to regroup, rethink, and get out of the business and, take a step back again. And I was a real high-profile general manager and vice president of operations on a real fast track. And at that point, we just needed to rethink everything. So when we left Des Plaines, we decided to take a step backwards. It actually was a step forward. So that was the reasoning. So I really don't want to publish that. That's kind of not too many people know that, and some people that are very close to us knew, but it can cause some problems if you understand.
Larry, let's go back to kind of the beginning of your life a little bit, and let me get you to talk a little bit about what you did after high school.
Well, again, I went to school in Taylor, Michigan. John F. Kennedy, graduated in 1967. And all during that time, from the time I was 14, I was working in hotels and restaurants and hotels all the way through school. Worked for a Holiday Inn chain, and actually worked during the riots in Detroit at the Holiday Inn on Trumbull in downtown Detroit, right next to Briggs Stadium at that point, all during the riots. Had no clue what they were about because I was still in school. But we weren't even allowed to leave the hotel. We had to put mattresses up against the windows and sneak back and forth to all the areas because we were kind of in the hotel during the whole period of the time for the riots in Detroit. And showed a real aptitude for the hospitality industry and working in hotels and restaurants. And I still wanted to go to school and go to college. And they made an offer to me to go to Marquette, Michigan, and work with their opening hotel in Marquette. So I went to Northern Michigan University and did well with that, and then did some student teaching, went back to Wayne State University, and then got involved with a management company in the hotel and did some student teaching and absolutely hated it. Just hated it. I just couldn't stand being in the room with the kids. They were yelling and screaming, and I didn't want anything to do with it. Because at that point, it was student teacher was fair game. That was it. You could never do it before. You could do it with a student teacher, and I had no patience. So, ended up staying in the hotel business and connected with Ramada Inns Inc. out of Phoenix, and they put me on a fast track program as a front office manager, general manager, assistant manager. Opened a new hotel in Erie, Pennsylvania. Went to Rockville, Maryland. Went to Alexandria, Virginia. Tysons Corners, Virginia. Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You name it, I was there. It seemed like everywhere I went to. I was in Baltimore for a while. Opened 4 hotels in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Went back to the Detroit area, opened the Hilton at the airport, and then went to Chicago. Opened a Hilton right at the airport there, Sheraton and the Holiday Inn, which at that point was the largest Holiday Inn in the world, and across from Rosemont Expo Center.
Sure.
And then there were some big changes in our lives. We wanted to take a little bit of a slower track because I was still very, very young. I had done all that before I was 40 years old, and was one of the youngest general managers in the corporation. He decided just to step back after a couple tragedies, and that's when we came to Saugatuck and started looking at different areas of in the country. I don't know if we covered all that other about Traverse City and all that. I think we already covered that.
Yeah.
Yeah, covered the going and finally deciding on Pumpernickel's.
Uh-huh.
And we've been here ever since.
There's something you mentioned earlier about working with the kids who were your employees here.
Right.
The development of the kids that were employees here. I wonder if I can get you to talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's I would say that's probably the number one reward of working. Not only the financial reward in the development of the property personally, but to see these kids that we worked with started in 1988 and 1989, and seeing them come through. And we've got doctors, we've got attorneys, we've got we have a couple of missionaries. We've got one young man right now who's working on his PhD. He's going to get his PhD this year. He's going to be a minister. Margaret and Patrick Bach, they come to my mind. They're two really, really wonderful kids. One, Margaret is now just graduated from Northwestern. She's a pediatrician. Patrick is an international attorney. He's now in Luxembourg, and he does international. His parents live in Austria. We've got a garbage man. He is a musician, and he just wants to drive a garbage truck and write his music. We've got marine biologists. We've got many, many, many teachers. Attorneys seems to be the biggest one for some reason. But we have a lot of attorneys and we have physical therapists. And these kids, they come back. We see them. They come in here with their kids, and now that their kids are looking for jobs, that's the scary part because we're in the third generation of kids working here. But the exciting part about it is that we've had a lot of kids that were troubled. We had one in particular who is now a rocket scientist. Tried to commit suicide the day before he got a job here, and we didn't turn him around. He turned himself around because he was able to focus on a job that had absolutely nothing to do with his personal problems. And every year, hear from the kid. It's pretty exciting. A lot of them that have had a lot of family problems, they use their work the way it should be, to throw themselves into their job and not have to worry about their personal problems. That's pretty exciting. That's one of the most rewarding things.
They're learning how to serve people, how to relate to
Absolutely.
people.
They're responsible for themselves instead of living up to someone else's expectations from a family standpoint, but from an employer standpoint, what they're expected to do. And not just them, but an entire group of people. They're not singled out for their behavior. They're expected to behave as a group. And that gives them some responsibility. It's not focused on them.
So it's a team effort.
It's a team effort. They don't view it as a team. They say that I'm not being singled out and my behavior is not being singled out. I am expected to do the same thing everybody else does. And I think that's where you can get a hold of those kids and see that there is another way to live versus the pressure of performing for someone else, family member.
Larry, you have a very unique way of running your place here. I found myself standing in line waiting to put my order in. It was, for a place that looks like you should be having people come to the table to get my order. Talk a little bit about how you built the style of service here.
Well, again, when we put the facility in, it basically wasn't a restaurant; it was more of a delicatessen. And we had no seating in the building whatsoever. I decided at that point that on the margins that we were going to work into, and I wanted to look at a long term, or where I wanted to take the place for a long term. And I thought, resorts are notorious for not being able to find help after the magic day of August 18th. Everybody's going back to school. You're depending very, very heavily on college and high school kids, and then once that happens, you have no staff left. And a lot of your professional waiters and waitresses, they also leave at that point. So to find a concept that was going to be able to provide the quality of service that a high-end tourist town was going to be expecting, and still be able to find a labor market that was going to fulfill that, we came up with this concept of putting the emphasis on taking the order as a cash register and at a counter versus table service. And it worked. We put blackboards up and My thought process is that if they're standing in line, they can make up their mind what they want by the time they get to the counter. We take the order at the cash register. It's prepared and served by what we call runners. And these kids will pick up the food, read the ticket, yell out the first name. We absolutely intentionally decided we were going to use last names, our first names, instead of numbers or last names, because we wanted that feel of Saugatuck being very friendly on a first name basis. And as a side note, the exciting, kind of by accident, we use everybody's first name. I have no clue what anybody's last name is to this date. And now we know some of these people so well, I'm too embarrassed to ask what their last name is. But we've gotten to know everybody on a first name basis and then find out who or what they are, and it's pretty staggering. The presidents of companies and, lawyers, doctors, attorneys, really high rollers, and we're on a first name basis. And we got to know them before we knew who they were. So that stigma's over with, and it's been very rewarding to go through that. But the reason we started that, again, because it made it an easier labor market to train. And the transition between kids going back to school and going in downtimes and shoulder periods was a lot easier. Because Saugatuck still keeps going after Labor Day, but there's nobody to work. So our decision to do this concept proved to be worthwhile for us, and it takes that pressure off. So, and it works. And we were going to change it and go to sit down at some point. Never did it. It still stayed the same way as it is.
Do you think you ever will?
No. We did dinner for a while. We were going to do dinner for a seasonal. We were very, very successful the first 2 years that we did dinner. And then we got into the same thing. August 18th, everybody goes back to school. And the expectations of our customers were still the same of what they were when we had a full staff. And I just couldn't produce it. Just couldn't do it. And to go into that downturn after the holidays and after Labor Day and provide that quality of service, I just didn't feel I could do it as well. So we discontinued to that, and it's really not enough people to go around. The dinner houses that do it very successfully all year round, they do it well. So we stayed breakfast and lunch and then stopped doing dinner about 2 years ago. And we still do it just as well. Our numbers are just as good as they were when we were doing dinner without the pressure and the performance. And there would be a niche, but in all honesty, I'm just too old to be doing that. From 4 in the morning until 4 at night, you have to do it 24 hours a day.
Sounds like there's a good deal of flexibility in how you operate.
Absolutely. And a lot of our people have been here a long time. Our kids keep coming. We're pretty lucky with the kids. We're going back to the kids again, but I would come to say that I would say about 50 to 60% of our staff, we get 4 or 5 years out of them, which is unusual in this industry. And they come back, we'll get at least 2 years of college out of them.
Wow.
Some of them we've got a couple of kids coming back that are in graduate school this year. Because it's easy. It's a no-brainer. They come in here, they work, they can forget all their problems and their studies, and play with the customers, and that's it. There you go.
Yeah, it's a good release. Have you found any kids that would not have gone on to school that have, as a result of being here?
Well, unfortunately, we found a lot of kids that didn't go to school.
Yeah.
Were pigeonholed to go to school and decided they just didn't want to do that. They wanted to take some time off.
Oh, okay.
And were a little bit more financially secure after working here and bought some time. And some of them went to school, some of them didn't.
Have you followed most of these kids?
They follow us.
They follow you.
They follow us. And it's been more exciting over the last few years with the internet, because now email and they find you. Where a lot of kids we lost track of have now found us again, or rekindled that relationship with them. So it's kind of fun. It's real fun.
Larry, you've been coming up here since the early 60s.
That's correct.
What has your overall experience been here?
Well, again, we came up. This would be I don't even remember if it was a weekend trip, but my parents would bring us up here, and not even knowing where we were coming. They didn't know what a Saugatuck was. It was just something that we had to do, another family outing. And I remember walking the streets and walking all over the things, and my dad would herd us around different areas and going to the different restaurants. And I never knew why my dad was doing it. I know why now, because when I look at the hotel with Flo standing up there with her bunny slippers on, and the biker groups and all that, he kind of insulated us from that. He didn't want us exposed to all that. And the pavilion, I don't remember too much about the pavilion at that point. I don't know that I was interested in it. I think my parents were, because they wanted to go dancing there. And that was, all I remember was the roof. That was monumental at that point. Going over.
Well, that must have been late 50s.
Probably, maybe. I guess I don't remember.
It was gone in the 60s.
Yeah,
It was gone in 1960. It was gone.
Yeah. I remember it, that's all, but I don't remember that much about it. You know,
Pretty young.
I remember the roof, and that was about it. So, and I would have been pretty early then. And then eventually my sister moved here, and my brother-in-law was an attorney here in town, and in Holland and Allegan. They ended up settling here. They've been here ever since, and I've been on Indian Point. But you know, the early days, you know, one of my fondest memories when we opened the restaurant was a little guy that delivered newspapers. His name was Greg. And I'm sure you've heard the story about Greg and his bike, and he was kind of the Pee Wee Herman of, of Saugatuck. He would come into the restaurant every day and get our specials, and I didn't know what specials were at that point. And he'd take them to all the stores, and couldn't understand Greg. Could never understand Greg. And he would come in and he'd deliver all my specials to all the stores. You know, when Stub Lewis had all these. It was a fun thing. Those were the early when we got here. The restaurants, I remember hearing stories about the Blue Umbrella and the Blood and Gore and Billy's. Remember Billy, she was, I still don't think we'd even be here today if it wasn't for Billy. Billy wanted us to succeed. She was a lunch and dinner operation at Billy's Boathouse, and she was a crusty old bride, and she was the nicest lady. She said, you know, I'm not jealous that you opened a restaurant. I want you to succeed. I want you to be the best you possibly can be here, because the more people that come here to eat, the more tourists we have, and the more people that come here. And she mentored us for a lot of years, and I still credit her with the success of our restaurant here because she wasn't jealous. She wanted us to go on. Sue Safford, Loaf and Mug, the Whites at the Butler, Morrow's, of course. They all, and those are the ones that are still here, because they wanted us to succeed. And those are the early memories that I really remember of starting business and having, and those were the people that we visited when we came up here.
Barry, it's been 23 years that you've been running this business. I'm sure you've had your ups and downs. Can you talk a little bit about the run?
It's been a roller coaster. It's been a good roller coaster. There's always the financial difficulties because the outside influences are so important. Weather. I consistently always saying that Saugatuck all depends on the weather. We don't do inconvenience, or tourists don't do inconvenience. Having a more affluent tourist base, they've got the options of going wherever they want to. So if it rains, they just go onward. We're so insulated here. No matter what happens in the country, come Memorial Day, people come. If there's a gas shortage, it's still cheaper to go to Saugatuck than it is to go to the islands. If it snows on Friday, they don't come because they go home. There are days that it's faster to get here than it is to Schaumburg. So the weather has a lot to do with it. I can remember the worst time we ever had was the Gulf War. We just started a major construction project here, put in a bar, put in a new kitchen, did everything, and all of a sudden we had a war. And the bottom just dropped out, and I was ready to just throw it in and just walk away from the project. And then Memorial Day hit, everybody came back. So, your faith is always restored in this city. It's so insulated, and people love it so much. And if you don't see them this year, you see them 2 years from now. And it's a big memory. And I think probably one of the biggest challenges that we've had is not change too much, because people want to come back and experience what they experienced 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's a huge memory town. Mount Baldhead, Joyce Petters, going to the same restaurants, walking in here and seeing us, the same faces, or remembering a cinnamon roll or a sandwich. It's nothing great, but it's the same as it was 10 years ago or 12 years. It's stifled our creativity because we don't want to mess with it, But also it makes it pretty easy too, because you don't have to be that creative and just provide that consistency. Going to the drugstore. Have you ever gone to the drugstore and not found what you wanted? So many stories. People will come in here and they say, "Oh, I bought this at the drugstore 15 years ago and it broke. It's still there." They could find it, and I think that's what's made Saugatuck so exciting is the nostalgia. and always being the same. And the freedom to be creative. There aren't all kinds of ordinances that prohibit Oostings from changing their window. I mean, everything has always not been the same, but it's a nice memory to walk back. Old Beach, all these things. And these people come in here year after year after year. Again, you don't see them every year, but you might see them every 3 years. Our experience, it seems like every 3 years we get a repeat factor. And that's what they remember. And the ups and downs, fortunately, has kept some of the old timers like ourselves that have been here, is that we know we had to spend an awful winter, but we know we only got 30 days before it starts moving again. And it always does. And it always has, way before our time, and hopefully will be after our time. And it always is going to be a destination resort. And it's pretty exciting.
Oh, it is, yeah. You're a destination for, I think, traditional things. Our Monday morning hike, for example, is, we'll probably always come back here.
Right.
Other things, I'm sure. There are always other.
We got the biker groups. I consistently always laugh about our 3 churches that come in here every Sunday and separating them so that we don't have a holy war. The Pope's not going to have to come in and arbitrate. The Episcopals, the Catholics, and then there's the early Catholics and the later Catholics and Father Corey. It's a riot. One of them will get out before the other one comes in. We've got the biker groups. We've got the chamber music, the SCA. And it's
quite a range.
It is. And it's because we're not intimidating. I don't think. It's just it is what it is. And that's been. We've been pretty supportive. The town has been really good to us. The local community has been very, very good to us. And I think hopefully we've given back. Not as long, with the employees and, the beautification. Every year the garden club, we started it, but they always come to us and say, "Do you mind doing it again this year?" I'd be insulted if you didn't ask me to do it. So those are the highs. There's so many highs I can't even remember them anymore.
Larry, you seem to have a lot of stories about the unforgettable characters of Saugatuck. Could you talk more about that?
Oh, there's a zillion of them. So just going down the street, you're looking at the drugstore, you've got Chris from the drugstore, you've got, of course, Oostings. Beth, she was just phenomenal at Oostings. Pre-computer, you could go into Oostings anytime you want. She'd remember what you bought 15 years ago and how much you paid for it and be able to pull it out and get it for you. She died a few years ago, and she's just, of course, her brother, the great wars that went on. We used to have a hot dog stand across the street, and the Embassy was the restaurant where Phil's is now, and Rita, the owner of used to fight with the hot dog store back and forth. They would share each other's tables, and hot dogs would throw the chicken off on the ground. She'd put the hot dogs on the floor, and there would be wars going back and forth. It was just an absolute riot. Everybody would stand across the street and see what war was going to be going across the street. The Dr. Dog, which, that went full circle because the Dr. Myers, was a dentist, and his wife Martha, now their son, is a doctor, lives in Douglas now. He's practicing in New Zealand. That's how they paid their way through medical school and school. They worked Dr. Dogs across the street. It was an appendage on the front of the drugstore. And of course, Stubb and Sue Lewis that had Brigadoon for years east of the sun. And just wonderful people. There was another, I'm forgetting all these people. And of course, Wilkinsons, they've been around forever. Billy from Billy's Boathouse, we've touched on her before. The newspaper boy that used to come around again. And Chuck Parrott, anybody that remembers Chuck Parrott walked around town with his little dog in a pouch, carrying his dog, Coco. He just moved to Mexico a few years ago. He had the old post office shop, which was in business for years and years and years. Bill Galligan, who then took over the post office shop and then moved it over here across the street. Maros, who have been phenomenal all these years. Of course, Coral Gables, Mike. Mike is the best. I mean, if I was ever in trouble, Mike would be the first person I'd ever go to. He's just been incredible all these years. There's so many characters. Virginia, the silversmith. for years and years, Virginia would, she wouldn't let anybody walk in front of her store because she didn't want to have to look at it and it would distract her. So she had little obstacle courses that she'd walk in front of her store there. Greg, the paperboy again, used to come in and get the specials from all the restaurants. He used to go from one restaurant to the next and get all the specials and take them all to the stores for us. The girls at Monroe's, who've been around forever. Sue Safford, both of them. Dan from the T-shirt shop, who's been here forever. Flo, who used to run the little hotel where Joyce Petter, her original gallery, was down here. Kilwin's people, the House of questionable above Kilwin's there, yeah, House of Repute. Yeah, all these things. Ted Kimball. We touched on this early. Ted Kimball. Upstairs here used to be 2 apartments, and Helen Metzger lived upstairs. And she hired Ted Kimball to change every light bulb in her apartment once a month. When we took over the building, the second floor was condemned, and when we finally got up here, we were able to get up here after we bought the building. We found crates and crates of light bulbs. And at that time, you used to exchange your light bulbs, take it back to the electric company, and they'd give you new ones. So she would never throw a light bulb away. So those were marked, and every one of them had a date on it of when that light bulb was going to get replaced. And Ted, he had a consignment shop across the street, and Helen supposedly was the resident pickpocket and shoplifter, but it was a challenge of doing it. And we found a lot of things up here after the fire that were in original packaging that probably ended up having to go back to the stores. Betty Mulder, who was a Spanish teacher at the high school, still says Helen is here in the building. She talks to Helen. And we have, and I hate to agree with Betty Mulder, but we have had over the years many, many unexplained things. Who knows? You know what it is. I'm sure
like
what? We've had equipment moved. We've had different equipment was turned on, and everybody would swear that it was turned off the night before. We've had. I can remember one day we came in and there were 2 eggs in a pan sitting in the back, and that was before we started breakfast. Don't ask me where they came from. To this day, I don't know where they came from. But when we
like a suggestion. Maybe
who knows? Yeah. But and so we just let Helen get the credit for all the strange things. Anything that happens here that we can't explain, we just blame it on Helen. And her picture was above the fireplace when we bought the place. It had been just like the fire. When the fire happened, and as I was explaining to you earlier, we had the teapot. I don't know what happened to that teapot. I'd like to see what happened. I'm sure we threw it away during the construction. But so many characters. Oh, it's just been fun. Dick Rudick, that did the architects. Did all the architect, all the drawings, came up with the concept for us. Going back to Chuck Parrott, he wouldn't come in here when we first bought it because he said, I only go to eateries. So we said, okay, fine. So we put eatery, called it Pumpernickel's Eatery. And then he came in every day, and brought cocoa. And, obviously it was against the law to bring a dog in here. But, we said, heck, that gave us more business because people came in to see this dog in a pouch. And Coco's feet never touched the ground. So there's, Bev Rosengren, Fritz. Fritz, who had the gourmet shop, which was above the Butler Pantry. He was another one that gave us a good start. He just wanted us to be successful here. The more successful businesses, the more charm, the more people that came in, the more things to do. But Fritz and Ron that had the Butler Pantry, they were phenomenal to us. I should list them all because I'm sure there's a million of them. Again, the robbery, Deepenhorst, that was incredible. All these people, there's a lot of these people. They have Rosengren. She's now in Mexico with Chuck. They moved. A lot of our people went to Mexico. A lot of people lived here. So,
They're following each other?
I think so. Initially, they went there and they found out the cost of living was so good. That's where Chuck is, and that's where Dick Rudick lived. Bev Rosengren. A lot of the real estate people, and there's still people that go to the same. It escapes me where they were going right now. I want to say Puerto Vallarta, but I know that's not it.
Is it that coast? Is it that side?
I can't remember. I really can't. As soon as you walk out, like everything else, I remember. remember everybody's name 15 minutes after you need it. So, Jim Brandis. Oh my God, Jim Brandis. Look around this room.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one of Jim Brandis's originals up there that he did. His style has changed so dramatically. Jim, when we got here, it was after we got here in 1991, we opened a little delicatessen there. In my kitchen is a mural that Jim Brandis did in 1991, and it has all these characters up there of all that Chuck Perry, all these people that lived there at that time. Jim was so poor he didn't have money for rent, so he did it, that mural that's back there for, I think it was $200, and I had to fight with him to give him $200. So that was a lot of money for us. And he did it just for some work to do. Now my dilemma is I can't get rid of it because he painted it right on the drywall, and I don't have any way of getting rid of it, and I would never get, unless I could relocate it in the building.
Uh-huh.
Jim has come in here on many occasions trying to find a way of how we could cut it off the wall and move it to another portion of the building, which would be great to see that. I mean, you would not believe that Jim Brandis did that. So those are the kind of memories that all got us here. Sandy Randolph, my goodness, Sylvia. Oh Lord, how much we miss Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
She was just Sylvia. Those who've known me a long time. I was very, very heavy, very, very. I lost a phenomenal amount of weight, and went into the drugstore one day, and nobody recognized me. Nobody. I walked up, Sylvia was there. Hi, Larry. How are you? She was 100 years old at that point, I think. And Sylvia, we would go down to her house, and it got to the point where Sylvia couldn't walk anymore. So our instructions were to go there, but knock on the door and yell on the door, and she recognized everybody's voices. We have a screen up there that she did for us as an opening present. So there's just so many of them, so many. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the best ones. Well, this is one of Julie Rosso's first cookbooks that she produced after she left Sheila Lukens, and this was Great Good Foods, I think. She did this in 1993, and we helped a lot with this. We did a lot of the test recipes for us, and then the reason she gave us this is that we did a huge affair for her launching the book. And then surrounded, there's all kinds of photographs of different people from the SCA, different actors and actresses that have starred there. We've got B. Arthur is up there. We got Sutton Foster. Oh, some of these are pretty big time. Larry Young is up here. There's a lot of them. I've got hundreds of them in the office that just got real lazy and haven't put them all up here. There's you can see a photograph of B. Arthur. She was here several occasions. Mm-hmm. And Nancy J. Nelson. Again, these are more actors and actresses who were at the SCA over the years. Now I feel guilty. I haven't put them all up here.
And this painting, Larry, is?
That was one of Jim Brandis's original oils. That's the original oil, Jim. I don't know when he did that, but it is a box book. Drop down, and as you can see, the blackboard menu is here. We use this when it's busy because at the beginning, if you're coming in here, there's generally a line. It gives you the opportunity to select what you're going to have and place your order at the cash register. So we try to keep everybody from the time they hit the door to the time they place their order to about 7.5 minutes, which keeps everybody moving very quickly. Because again, we can serve sometimes as many as over 1,000 people a day will go through this place. So it's important that everybody makes up their mind before they get to the cash register, otherwise there's a real bottleneck. And of course, if the people don't see the line moving, they feel that is a deterrent for coming in here. They have to wait too long. But as long as they see people moving, they are generally pretty happy about standing in line. Mm-hmm. One thing people don't mind is standing in line as long as they know they're next. But we came up with this concept so it drops down, and then the bar is on the other side, so at night we can open it up and you see the full bar set up. And the other set of panels go down so the service staff can work behind it. So it gives us a little bit of different versatility without changing the entire concept.
That's really interesting. You mentioned earlier that you began this whole system to reduce the amount of stress and pressure that would be on your wait staff.
That's correct.
And allowed you to find wait staff that were less experienced.
That's correct. Our reasoning behind that is that, again, we're a small business. Like everybody else, we were scared to open up a business and a venture this magnitude because the building was condemned and long term, and it just felt that I would be more confident if I was in charge and putting all the decisions and all the questions a normal customer would have as far as menu items, the burden would be on the cash register. So then the kids, instead of having to worry about training staff continually, it was a lot easier to train staff just to read the name, read the ticket, and take it to the table. And that's where we started the first name concept, because so many places you'd go in, you'd get it. It was kind of a cold feeling of getting a number, or they would assign you a number, or they would ask you your last name. And we really always wanted to keep that anonymity where we didn't have to have people's last names and make it formal. So everybody's on a first name basis. And that's how it evolved, and it's been like that ever since.
This building has a long history of many people having used it. Could you share some of that with us?
Sure. I think two of the longest running were the grocery stores, Lundgren's and Wilson's. But over the years, we've met some of the people that are still in business. Virginia, the silversmith was here. The original newsstand was here. Douglas Gas and Oil was here. Commercial Record. The girls at Amaru Leather started here. Andy from Art Glass Alcohol had our original shop here in the back. Gosh, I think there was a jewelry store here at one time, and then go back even further, there was a pool hall, ice cream parlor, a snooker parlor. Somebody had once told me that the reason there was a snooker parlor, I don't know the difference between snooker and billiards, is that billiards was illegal at a time, so they put in a snooker parlor. There was when we took over the building, down in the basement, we had found oyster shells. So they were shucking oysters down there at some period for a long time, because there was hundreds of thousands of oyster shells that we had picked up from down there. It was a meat market. They did a lot of slaughtering, because we found a lot of those things down there and evidence of that. But I think the grocery stores were the ones that were here. And one of the Lundgren girls comes in here every March 17th with green hair. She's been doing that since she was a teenager. She's no teenager anymore by any means, but she comes in to revisit every year. It's had a phenomenal history, just a phenomenal history. And of course, the apartments that were up here for most of the time. You know, there was an ice cream shop here in the front. There was a yogurt shop. We've had a deli. We've had a cookie factory. We used to bake cookies in the front window up here. We've done everything to find our niche, and this is it.